Hello, everybody. Welcome to Free Discourse Radio on Sunday, and we're going to do another Talking Carlson episode here. So let's watch.
Of safety. And today he wrote this: people, the lawyers, and the courts can call it whatever they want to, but I'm calling it what we need, and what it is, a travel ban. A travel ban is a toned-down version of what the president called for on the campaign trail in 2015.
Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and...
Oh, 1 second. Move this up. 10 seconds? Yeah.
Security, and he joins us tonight. Thanks a lot for coming on. Now, all the folks...
This guy is a Democratic strategist, and he has opinions here on Trump and the tweets, London tweets, immigration, all that stuff. So here we go.
Has been on the president's motives in this. What does he really mean? What does he desire personally? And I guess I would say that's unknowable, as it always is with people's motives. The question is, does the country deserve a higher level of protection in light of what we're watching happen in Europe? And I don't see how we don't deserve that.
No, I agree with you that we need a higher level of protection, especially nowadays. But we have to identify where the threat is. As Charles was saying, many of these radicals are homegrown, meaning that they've not come from somewhere else. They've grown.
So still, the Democrats are using the same exact reasoning that has been debunked over and over again after every attack. They're still continuing to say that, oh no, these guys are just homegrown. They may be homegrown, but what is the ideology that they are utilizing to, not even utilizing, what is the ideology that they believe in that's making them go and carry these attacks out?
Within these countries. And so we've got to counter violent extremism and make sure that the ISIS's narrative of a clash of civilization is not the one that we adopt. And you're right, nobody knows President Trump's motive.
Sorry to say, but the civilizations are already clashing, clearly. If you take a look at Europe, there is a separation already between many people that feel like they are not safe in their own communities anymore because of Muslim extremists. Not every single person who's more right-leaning and like right-wing Islam-leaning or fundamentalists, not all of them are carrying out attacks. A lot of them are preaching hate against Jewish people, against people who are outside the faith. And that's why you see the second generation immigrants being radicalized at a greater rate than their parents.
What we're concerned about is that sometimes his rhetoric inflames that, and that's the concern by the intelligence organizations,
okay, but this
counterterrorism.
I guess. I mean, it's hard to generalize about intelligence organizations or counter-intel people. I mean, it's a huge group. But look, this has been going on for a long time. You can hardly blame his intemperate language for all of it. But in the 18 terror plots that have been foiled in the last couple of years, 2/3 were hatched apparently by people who would be affected by this temporary stop on immigration from those countries. So why would that have been a bad thing? 2/3.
Look, I don't know. Like Cato Institute.
See, before we listen to his answer, on top of what Tucker Carlson is saying there, which is true, yeah, we obviously reduce the amount of people with this travel ban that would come in to harm us. And on top of that, too, besides the whole, actually, let's hear his answer, and then we'll... I know I do this all the time. 1 second.
Did a study, and they looked at people from 1975 to 2015, and 3.5 million refugees have come here. Not a single one has committed a terrorist attack. So that's just a big number. And so we...
Okay, yeah, so you just saw Tucker Carlson there. He's sifting through his papers to find a fact, because what he just basically said was the 3.5 million Muslims living in the United States are refugees, which is wholly not true. We haven't taken in nearly as many refugees as the Europeans have as far as the migrant crisis goes. But not all 3.5 million Muslims that come here are immigrants. A lot of them came here through legal means. They came here because they want to get away from Sharia law. They came here for freedom.
We have to do this as the world is, rather than the way sometimes maybe the president and others might want to see it. This is not a clash of civilization. We've got to effect...
That is 100% false. The fact that he wants to pretend that the cultures aren't clashing, Muslim and Christian, or Muslim and secular, I should say, actually. That they're not. My phone, sorry. One of these days I'll put this on silent before I start a video. But yeah, he's completely wrong about that. Like the cultures are clashing, and a lot of it is being insinuated not by Islamophobic responses, but by oppression from Islam, because where they come from, Islam oppresses, and they're continuing as they were in many of these cases. Not everyone, but many of them now.
From law enforcement and intelligence and human intelligence.
And another point, like that number is only going to increase as more migrants come in. Like, what do they think is going to happen? We're going to be seeing more and more and more of these attacks that are coming in, because the more that come in, the more people who are either radicalized or went there in the first place to fight for ISIS and are now returning, in Britain's case, or they're going to radicalize the people that are already here, that are the most vulnerable minds, like young people who are vulnerable to ideology, much like many of the college students these days are vulnerable to hard left-wing opinions and positions.
Go after the threat, and doing the travel ban is not the most effective way, and that comes from...
The travel ban is like probably the most effective thing that we can do, at least as at first. The first thing you should do if you're finding that terrorism is being imported is to stop the importation of it. I don't see how stopping people from getting in the country if they is not going to help. If they don't get in the country, they can't radicalize, they can't carry out attacks, they can't make bombs. What are you talking about, guy?
Look, I'm sorry, you threw out a fake statistic. I don't know if some think tank gave it to you, but I mean, here are the actual
Cato
numbers
Institute
on
is
this.
a notable think tank on the
I'm just telling
conservative
you,
side.
I'm not attacking. I'm just saying, here are the actual facts. May 17th, 2016, two guys from Somalia busted with bomb-making material. November 16th, another guy from Somalia, Ohio State attack, as you know.
Yeah, see, no, he's about to go in. So, like, obviously, this guy's been debunked. Like it is happening. You know, that people are getting. Thank God the FBI is on top of this stuff, and Homeland Security. But it is happening. They are busting terrorists. They are busting people from outside the country that do not like us. You know, so again, let's continue.
September 16th, another Somalian. Here's another Afghan, Somalian, Iraqi, Somalian, Iraq, Sudan, Iraq. I mean, this is all within the span of a year. People arrested for terror plotting. Look, I'm not impugning everyone from Somalia. I'm just saying this is real.
Well,
they can't. Like, I have to make another point here before we hear his excuses. It's been established that people don't mean every single Muslim, that every single Somali, every single this and that. They can't get over the fact that some of them are just extremists, and are it's just like a lot of people who disagree with the religious right in our country. You know, I'm not nearly saying the religious right is as bad as radical terrorism, but I'm just saying that it is possible for people to be more fundamentalists in their religions. Now, notice how the fundamentalist Christians, they don't go out and blow people up, and at least not at the rate that Islamic terrorism does it. You know, not to say that there aren't lone wolf Christian terrorists. Of course there is. But we are having a problem and a trend with Islamic grooming and radicalization. Both Christian and Muslim terrorism, I want us to approach and talk honestly about. I'm not like I don't want to defend the other side or anything like that. Anyone who does harm, we should be honest about and discuss what what's causing these issues. And in Islam's case, we are importing it, and I don't see how it's Islamophobic to say that we want to stop our own people from getting killed. You know, even if it's 2 people in California or 2 people in Mississippi or something like that get killed, that's still too much. There is a problem with terrorism, and I'm not comfortable with the left's enthusiasm to import more people at the sacrifice of whatever American citizen and that has to live alongside them will have to suffer. Like, they don't care about it. They're willing to just disregard that so we can pat ourselves on the back for accepting people who are in need. But what really should happen is, first of all, protecting our own borders. We're not obligated to take anybody in from any part of the country. And I get it. I know the West did a lot of things that may have set up a bad situation for many of those countries and set it up for radical Islamic terrorism to take over in many parts of the Middle East. The West is responsible partly for some of that, for some of the dealings that we did with the Mujahideen and Wahhabist the Wahhabist ideology. So us supporting it doesn't help the situation, and us invading and overthrowing secular governments for radical Muslims to take over just because it'll be in our favor. Like, yeah, I disagree with that too, but that doesn't mean that we commit suicide by feeling guilty and about something that most of us, especially in my generation, the younger generation, is not responsible for. So why do we have to suffer because there's a bunch of guilt-tripping political hacks in Washington that want us to feel bad about ourselves and about our country, when really what we should be doing is feeling more confident and optimistic and making an actual change, so that these things, we don't have to deal with these situations from happening again. We need smarter foreign policy. We need smarter domestic policy, really all around, and we should really look inward and see the things that we need to improve here, because there's plenty to improve here right now. So let's. Sorry, I went too long here. Let's see what this guy has to say. I'm gonna go back a few seconds here to get the question from Tucker again. All right, let's see.
From Somalia, Ohio State attack, as you know, September 16th, another Somalian. Here's another Afghan, Somalian, Iraqi, Somalian, Iraq, Sudan, Iraq. I mean, this is all within the span of a year. People arrested for terror plotting. Look, I'm not impugning everyone from Somalia. I'm just saying this is real.
Well, the real threat is homegrown terrorism, which we have to go after. Charles is right.
That is true. Homegrown terrorism is a problem, but you're not telling the whole story. Why is it because they're not always connected to a terror cell mean that they're not Islamic? They are still Islamic, even though they're homegrown. They get the ideology from somewhere, and they're going and doing it. In many cases, like especially Europe's situation, they're hearing this stuff right in their own mosques in Europe, in Britain, in Sweden, and no one's doing anything about it except apologizing for it. Ridiculous.
Charles was talking about that this is second, third generation in Europe that have not assimilated. And one of the reasons why the assimilation hasn't occurred is Europe created a hostile environment for those people that were coming into this country. And what we don't want to do is we make the United States...
You know what? I'm sorry. I can't let that stand. So you're saying that people attack the West because the West somehow isn't nice enough to them? Welcoming them into...
Okay, yeah, this is the part I have the most problem with in this interview, with this guy said. He is suggesting that we have not been nice enough to the people that are coming in. But what I see in the media, all right, when Germany started accepting the first huge waves of migrants, there were crowds of people clapping for them because they survived the journey and stuff like that. And I'm not gonna say anything to put those people down or anything like that. But like, they were clapping, they were accepting, and then our countries are giving them welfare. And they're not even going out and getting jobs for it, so they're being allowed. That's why these gangs are being erected everywhere, you know. So like the fact that you know, Islamophobia is the biggest problem with why terrorism is happening. I cannot, like, I don't know if it's a cop out or if we're just I don't know, we're just hating ourselves here, like.
And you just said that. You said, come on now, I'm trying to keep this civil. But I've got to say, it's grating to hear someone say that they face a hostile environment when they're brought over here at public expense and subsidized. Like, how is that hostile? I'm missing that.
Yeah, I was aware that Tucker was about to make that same point there, but yeah, he basically lays it down right there. You know, I barely even have to do a commentary, but I like to see these fools get debunked over and over again. Eventually we're going to get sick of it, because we know that their policies aren't going to work, and they're still going to continue to push them. But we have to. What we have to do to stop that is not vote for them and not allow them to. Hell, honestly, I think we really, I respect Tucker Carlson. I think he's one of the best right now out there in the cable news department. But I would shut off cable news just entirely. I wouldn't, I wouldn't get information from here. The reason why I do these analysis videos is because a lot of people still do watch them, and even people who don't follow politics that much and are just listening to what they hear in the headlines and stuff. Like, it's everywhere. Like, the cable stations are still everywhere, despite the fact that they're dying. So I do these videos so I can help in the debunking process of many of these people who are so-called experts in their fields, which they may be, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to be hacks and favor one political side over the other.
That's the look. Look, if you study counterterrorism and you look at Europe, what's made the environment really bad is many of these folks don't feel like they have opportunities and creates a false narrative. What the beauty of America is our hyphen.
Okay, before he goes into propaganda, he may be right that the unemployment and opportunity is lacking, but that is because an economy cannot necessarily handle, especially an economy that already has unemployment problems. Like we have several of our own demographic groups here in the country have massive unemployment problems, and many of those problems still aren't going away. And in these lower class regions, this is where the ghettos are going to be erected. So there's going to be even more clashes. It might be worse here than in Europe. Eventually, we already have problems with gang violence and racial tension. Things like this, like if we have people coming in that are going to be they're going to be put in the prisons, that are going to be put as that is a problem. Pakistani Islamism is a problem in prisons in Europe and parts of Europe, and if that happens here, I don't know how will our different demographic groups deal with that. I don't know, and it's something we should talk honestly about. Honestly.
First day that you land into the United States, you're an Italian American, you're a Irish American, you're a Jewish American, you're a Muslim American. That hyphen allows everybody to have their American identity. And that is something that Europe doesn't have. You have second, third, fourth generation people there that still consider themselves from the land that they came from.
And that's the Brits' fault. So the people...
Okay, yeah, so he actually makes a decent point as far as they're still think they're living in the country that they came from. That is true among especially the Islamic population right now. A lot of them, like you look at France and their parts of their cities that they live, they want to continue things as they were. Like if two women go into a bar and want to sit down in those regions, the men will actually harass them and tell them that they shouldn't be here because there's too many men. So like I don't. This is in France. This is not. We're not talking about Abu Dhabi or Riyadh. We're talking about Paris, France. And the fact that they don't want to talk about the fact that these things are happening because of what cultural appropriation or whatever. They shouldn't be allowed to come here and forsake our own liberties because we don't want to be Islamophobic and tell them that they can't go on with their misogynistic ways in the West. We shouldn't accept it, and we worked a long time to get to where we are for suffrage for everyone. And what he said about comparing Irish Catholics and people who came into the country. You can compare them to the sense that they might be treated like they were treated marginally, Irish Catholics, but they didn't go and blow shit up and open fire and killing 115 people with automatic weapons. They didn't do that when they were coming here, and I mean, you can say that they didn't have access to the weapons back then like we do now. You can say that, but you still had situations where terrorism was happening, like the IRA facing Great Britain. Like they didn't even do things like that here. And even though they were treated as second-class citizens for a while, but what we're seeing here is a different story, and the fact that why can't we talk about that? Like, why can't we protect our people?
Were murdered in Manchester, the kids. It's their fault because they just weren't welcoming enough. Like, what are you saying exactly?
What I'm saying is that we have to learn from their experience and make sure what we do here doesn't take place.
What we do? They let in all these people who are now trying to kill them, and it's their fault.
What's different?
Right, because that's not a good enough reason to be outraged. Is the fact that we're losing, that kids are getting blown up at concerts. Like, I mean, that's not funny. It's just funny that we have to still continue to explain these things out to certain people when we really should be taking action at this point.
Is that we are a country of immigrants bred from religious freedom. Those are our cornerstone principles.
Complete propaganda.
And that principle has allowed us to grow and flourish for over 200 years.
Okay.
This is something that we should build a nation on.
But are you saying...
All right, at this point, the interview has been reduced to pretty much talking points coming from this guy here. Because simply, I mean, I think it's because they don't have an argument, they don't, so they have to revert back to those talking points to get to survive an interview without getting completely wrecked by people who are not as politically correct and want to stay along a narrative.
That Muslims don't experience religious freedom in Great Britain?
Look, what I'm telling
What are
you
you
is
saying
based on
exactly?
That's exactly. He just said it, Tucker.
What I'm saying is that terrorists want to hurt and kill us, and the way they do it is by dividing. They're looking to recruit people that are within these.
No, they do it by blowing people up and by opening fire on crowds of people. That's how they're doing it. You're the ones that are dividing, actually. It's the political elite that protects much of this extremism is what's actually dividing the country right now, because they're so elitist and unaccepting of people who don't who don't agree with them, basically.
Countries. Online, there are recruiters that are
You tell me who the real intolerable ones are.
looking for people that feel like there is a wedge in society. And by rather than creating more wedges and making the environment more fertile for people to recruit, we've got to figure out a way to push back, hunt down, and kill them.
What you're doing. I mean, part of what you're saying is.
But we can stop that fertility of growing Islamic terrorism if we enact things like the travel ban and things like that. Like President Trump, at least he, I don't want to defend him on everything. There's things I disagree with him on, but like he actually wants to take action for the first time in 16 years. We want to actually take action against what's being imported to our country. We shouldn't stand for it. Like, come on.
Right, but the subtext is the same as it always is, which is blaming the victims for this. The Brits didn't deserve this.
True.
Yes, it is true.
That's not
you just
true.
suggested
Look,
that they created a hostile environment for immigrants and that they somehow abridged their religious liberty. Yes, you did.
I'm not the one that started tweeting against the mayor of.
Oh, let's go. Let's bring Trump into this and blame him as usual. This is a total ridiculous. Like, I don't know where they got this guy from, but he literally is just here to push these talking points. Like, when the hell are we going to wake up and see this? Like, stop voting for these guys. Like, I know we're not voting for this guy in particular, but, he comes from a think tank, he comes from not a think tank, but you know what I mean? An ideology that is basically ruling the Democratic Party and the establishment. When are we going to see that they're full of shit?
London in right after a terrorist attack. That's what President Trump did.
Well, he's not
President
here.
Trump
I'm asking you. Oh, so it's his fault.
I'm telling you.
Oh my God! To suggest that Trump is the one who started all this has been happening for decades now. In Europe's situation, it's as people, they've been taking in immigrants, and this has been built up over several decades. And to suggest that Trump is the one that's starting the divisiveness here, it was already happening as he was coming in, and it's still happening now. And that's mostly because of irresponsible fools like this guy who come on TV and they apologize for things that we should be taking action against.
How the
It's
divisive
always the
environment
fault
gets
of an
created.
American, I've noticed. Okay.
Look,
So maybe it's the fault of people who come here,
those
use
are
the
your
public
words.
resources.
I'm an American, and I don't want the fault of our nation. Like, I'm as equally American as any other American.
But I'm not.
No one suggested that you weren't. Do not. I don't know if he's like trying to use his own complexion now to bounce back in an argument that he has no points to make in. But that's just ridiculous. It's dishonest. Like, come on.
Contesting that, I'm
this
merely
country.
objecting
No.
to your instinct to blame the victims in Europe for the attacks
not
upon them.
Yeah, see, like sorry, I keep stopping this every 10 seconds, but I got a lot to say here. In many cases, like reading the micro stories about the grooming gangs, like the people that had to go through what they did and things like that, and then to go on TV and hear someone apologizing for and blaming the victims for these atrocities that are occurring to people in Europe. And now here, I just did a story the other day about a 5-year-old girl that was assaulted by 3 Muslim boys. And you can check that video out for all those details. But I don't think that we certainly shouldn't be blaming the victims here, and the fact that we can't even like stand up for them without being called an Islamophobe is just disgraceful.
We're blaming the victim.
You
Those are the
said
words
they
that
created
you're
a
using,
hostile
Tucker.
environment, and I'm watching and have for
That
30
is
years.
part of-
Very much the
that
opposite.
That is part of the challenge, because when you want people to assimilate, it's a two-way interaction. The people coming in the
Oh my God. I despise this argument that he's making here. Okay? It's a two-way argument, as if handing over our taxpayer money and our welfare and our clapping hands and and giving them a place to stay. And then they a lot of them pay us back by raping our women and blowing us up and shooting at us. Like he's complaining about a two-way street here. Like we've already given one way by giving them access to our nation and our taxpayer money.
Country have to want to assimilate, and the host nation has to assimilate them. So in 2, 3, 4 generations.
Yes, that's a good point. But you're not the assimilation is a huge problem, and the left is standing in the way of improving that process at all. The fact that he comes on here is like, oh yeah, it's the Islamophobes that are preventing us from assimilating these people, right? That's bullshit. That's complete bullshit.
Go in and the assimilation is not occurring, we have to figure out, what the problem is. The beauty of our nation is that people assimilate much faster than Europe because of the American hyphen.
If we complain about refugees or immigrants coming in from a certain region, then we're somehow abetting terrorism. It's a fantastic rhetorical trick you've devised to get people to shut up, but it doesn't work with me.
I think you're playing it. I'm not trying to shut you up, Tucker. God forbid I'm trying to shut you up.
But you're saying basically anybody...
You obviously don't get the point, guy. Tucker wasn't saying that you're specifically trying to shut him up. There is a national effort from one of the ruling ideologies in our country to shut up the other side. And they're doing that through shaming and guilting and blaming and finger-pointing and name-calling, frankly. And now we're going as far as to, you look at the players that are stabbing Trump to death every night and Snoop Dogg with his video shooting Trump in the head and things like that. The message that's being sent out. You guys are the I don't even know, enough said there, honestly.
Is abetting ISIS.
That's what you're saying.
Not true.
That's what you're saying. These are your words. These are not my words. These are your interpretations. This is.
Yeah, see, he can go ahead and say that all he wants. I think most people, who are rational see through what he's trying to say. Even look at Tucker's face. He's I don't know. I enjoy it. It's despite the fact that I don't. I actually despise mainstream media and cable news especially. I have to say I enjoy watching Tucker wipe these people out that he brings onto the show. It's pretty funny, but I mean it's funny to a certain point where you actually see that the policies that people want to implement that are going to help us be stonewalled in an unconstitutional manner, and then you go out in the public forums and people are still doing everything they can to stop you from speaking. And they don't have an argument to make back. They should know it's right, that it's wrong to apologize for this, but they still do it. And it could be for political reasons. I think maybe people are just useful idiots that they're following a partisan narrative because they can't imagine themselves siding with the other side ever, even when they're right. That's where we are here in America today, and I hope that changes. But thank you for tuning into Free Discourse Radio. This is the end of the video, and I will do more videos soon. And I know that recently I have been updating every day. Things are kind of busy over here. So I will continue to try and put out more videos and hopefully grow this channel a little bit and see where it goes. But thank you for tuning in, those of you who have. And thank you for supporting me and the channel here. And we'll see you next time.